This episode is brought to you by Fox One. Watch all 104 matches of the FIFA World Cup live in 4K for just $19.99 a month with 3 days free. Build your own multi-view, choose up to 3 streams, and follow player spotlights. Stay on top of every moment with live stats, highlights, and instant replays. The FIFA World Cup, streaming live on Fox One. Offers are subject to change. See fox.com for complete terms and conditions.
This episode is brought to you by Google Health. Stop chasing someone else's definition of health. What matters is what's healthy for you. Google Health offers a new kind of coach built with Gemini for effortless tracking, sleep insights, and holistic coaching tailored to you. Visit googlestore.com to learn more and start a new relationship with your health. Requires Google account, Google Health app, internet, and Google Health premium subscription. Features subject to change. Availability and results vary. Not intended for medical purposes. Works independently of Gemini apps. Check responses for accuracy.
Hi everybody, and welcome to the Dr. Psych Mom Show. Today I'm going to talk about, you've heard about this before, the male loneliness epidemic and what I think about that. And before I get into that, please do subscribe. I will be doing a subscriber episode next, so get ready. And if this episode resonates with you or resonates with something about your partner, your husband, then we are running a men's coaching group and it starts in 2 days. So that's going to be run by Ben Borkan. He's a therapist and a coach at my practice. So if what I talk about today resonates with you, that's going to be Tuesdays from 8 to 9:30 p.m. Eastern. And he's really excited to do it. It's going to be all really linked to a lot of the things that I talk about today. But for any man who is struggling with not having a connection, a community, it's going to be virtual, of course, but he hopes to build like real connections between the men. That's why it's so long, an hour and a half every week. Okay, so anyway, what do I think of the male loneliness epidemic? Well, I mean, a few things. First, there's a loneliness epidemic overall. So let's not put too fine a point on that. I mean, people have fewer friendships than they ever had before. Everybody's sucked into their phone. Everybody's obsessed with their children. Everybody's working like a dog. So between all those things, you know, work is constant. You can always get an email. You can always be on your computer in a way that it just didn't used to be like that. Even just 10 years ago. It really ramped up with the pandemic, so even really 5 years ago, really ramped up with the pandemic that you're expected to be constantly reachable, always on a device, always texting. And so between the fact that work is always up your ass and the fact that your friends can always be texted, it kind of eliminates the need to get outside your comfort zone and go meet people in real life, you know, meet up with them, hang out with them, etc. So this is for both men and women. There's like a real decrease in eating out. I mean, people like barely ever meet for dinner compared to what they used to. So many fewer people drink now. I mean, these are like significant changes. The idea of Cheers just looks like a bunch of alcoholics now to most people. Like, what? That's what those people do after work every day, you know? And so everything is changing quite a bit. However, women are more likely to text. So that's for sure. They're more likely to text each other. They are more likely to be the ones to get on the phone, less than they did, but they still will do it more. And they work less. I mean, they work like on average a couple hours less and do, you know, more child stuff to fill it out. That's what all those time use surveys show, is that men work a little bit more by a couple hours. Women do more stuff around the house by a couple hours. But during those, you know, like the more that you work, the less you could hang out with people. That's just the truth. And people like myself, who are women who work really hard and many hours, it's the same shit, you know? I mean, you can't be in two places at one time. So men are more often the breadwinner. They more often are working more hours, and it really does preclude getting together with people. But what about the psychological piece? It's not all time use, right? I mean, the extroverts of men and women are still getting together. No matter how much they work, they'll meet for lunch, they'll meet on the weekends, they'll meet up with families, they'll meet up with whatever, however they can do it. But the reality is that men are less suited for a verbal kind of text-based, hanging out kind of culture. Men are trained not to share their emotions as much, not to be quite as vulnerable when they do share. You got to be really, really close as a man to open up to a friend. It's not just going to be like women get together and they will almost immediately, even with a new friend, the way that you bond is basically by talking about your deepest stuff, like, oh my God, I feel like I'm such a bad mom because blah, blah, blah happened. And I missed this email. And then I thought, how could I balance everything? And this is crazy. And men really are trained to only share the positives, so their wins, and women share their losses. And sharing your wins doesn't really lead to as much bonding. It leads to kind of a more competitive kind of vibe, which is totally how men are. And that's adaptive and functional, especially in the workplace, to not dwell on like the things that you fuck up, certainly. But it really does, you need more time as a man where you hang out with somebody to deepen a connection than women do. A woman, you could hang out, a couple times and be like, oh my God, like I'm so close to this person now, or I think I'm going to be so close to this person. We have so much in common. I don't really hear it as much in my male clients as I do with women. Women will be like, oh, I met this friend of a friend, and we were together at some work event or some conference or mom's night out, something. And now we exchange numbers. And so we texted. And so I feel like we have a lot in common. But men, it kind of has to be like a lot. It has to be, this is going to be a guy I golfed with like 10 times, and now I consider him a friend. It doesn't just happen unless you're an extrovert. And there are plenty of big extroverts. They don't usually come into therapy. They're too busy having friends, I guess. But some of them do, of course, if they're struggling with other issues that are not these like kind of, issues of feeling disconnected or what have you. They can have anxiety and depression just like anybody. But my point is, if you're a super big extrovert as a guy, then you can meet somebody once and they're like, feel like a new best friend. But to most people, that's not going to happen for most men. So you don't really share until you get close, and you don't get close until you see somebody a whole bunch of times. So then if you can't get together a whole bunch of times because you're busy with work and family and stuff like that, then it really is hard to build that bond. The other part of the, quote, male loneliness epidemic is the relationships. So relationships, a guy puts everything into a relationship more often than women, because women do more often have a best friend, let's say, that is not the guy, the husband, and husbands are more likely to say the woman is their best friend, even if it's by default, even if they're like an avoidant guy. And he says that, she's basically, I guess she would have to be my best friend, versus like, oh, I love her so much, she's my best friend. But more often men are saying things like, that the woman is the main person that they talk to. And so they're putting more effort into that relationship. Nowadays, men are expected to be very involved in the family. So there's so many guys that basically she says, this is what we're doing on the weekend. And he says, okay. And so then he goes along with that to be a good family man, which is great. And he ends up spending time with her and or her friends or people she invites over, or the kids and their friends, or some kid activity. And more often the woman is creating those connections. Now, if they were to separate or divorce, then she takes those friends because she came up with those friends. So that's another reason that men are lonelier, is the main person that they talk to is the woman. And then if that relationship is bad, the marriage, or if it ends, then they do not have somebody else, which is probably why they remarry quicker, because they do remarry quicker. So overall, how would you work on this? I mean, it's like I tell people all the time, there's no easy fix, there's no free lunch is my favorite thing to say. You have to do awkward things in order to increase your social circle and not feel lonely and disconnected. Trust me, there are very few guys that are going to be offended. Almost nobody would ever be offended by you asking them to hang out. They would never think, oh, that guy's so weird, and this is like, especially if you're a more anxious person, you assume that everybody would judge you or think that you're weird, or that you don't have any time. When you feel like you have absolutely no time time, you got to look at your schedule again. Almost nobody has no time. If you have like a newborn, okay. But most people who are listening to this are somewhere in midlife, in their 40s, you have time. The kids do not take up every single bit of your waking hours. There are times when work is slow. There are times you could get lunch. You got to think outside the box. You could go play tennis. You could play something that isn't a whole day. I know if your wife doesn't want you to be gone a whole day, there are other things. There's gym classes. There's people that you could meet to do other activities with. There's also literally just getting lunch. You have to eat during the day. You could get breakfast. You can think outside the box to make these connections. You know, there's so many things that the people that feel lonely, whether they're men or women, you are contributing. Like, I hate to tell you that, you know, but you are contributing by not seeing opportunities in front of you. So for example, women, if they talk to their mother during the day, they will say, oh, I talked to somebody during the day. There's so many men that don't even count that. They don't even count that as feeling like that they're not lonely. And you will say, do you talk to your mom? Oh yeah, my mom calls. I don't really have time to call her back. So they don't really consider talking to their mom as like a conversation that they had with a person. So the one thing is they're not putting themselves out there to make new friends, because when you're kind of feeling stuck, depressed, etc., everything feels like it would be bad or unfulfilling or it wouldn't work out. And the second is they're not seeing the opportunities that they literally have. So they could go to a child event and another guy could talk to them and then they'll diminish it. They'll be like, oh, we were just talking about work. That's it. I don't even know that guy. Why would I ever become Facebook friends with that guy? That'd be so weird. You know, but it wouldn't be weird. It would be a connection. And so you're not seeing the connections you have, such as people who are reaching out, talking to you, whether they're friends or family, that women do count, or you are not putting yourself into situations because you're too anxious or you feel too down or too stuck where you could make other friends. I mean, I just told you about this coaching group at my practice. That could be a way for somebody to make a friend or to at least learn, you know, what you're doing communication-wise that's stopping you from maybe putting yourself out there or being able to connect with people. Because another one is there are some people who are so anxious that it is boring to talk to them. I hate to tell you that, and I've done a couple podcasts about this, but if you just literally do a recitation of what you do at work, where you went on vacation, and you don't seem to be like bringing any feelings to the table, you're a man that's not going to connect with other men either. That's not just like a woman thing to share feelings. It's a real thing. Like, the reason that some people tell stories and they're interesting is because they're bringing emotion into it. You know, the same exact story about where you travel could turn into an interesting story if there's any feelings, or an uninteresting story if it's just facts. So that is a point too, is that yeah, there are different ways to talk about work and travel. If you talked about travel and then you were like, and then I was so terrified because, you know, the plane's going to take off in, you know, the half hour, and we just got there and then we're trying to get through security and I was so worried, but thank God we got on the plane and blah, 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 blah. You know, that's like a story where somebody's engaged. But there are people that are so guarded and so kind of fact-based that if they got on the plane, even if they were late and they thought that they were going to miss it and they felt all kinds of anxiety about it, they would never think that was part of the story. But that is part of the story. Putting your own feelings is part of the story. And when you communicate with emotion as a man or as a woman, as anybody in the world, more people will be drawn to connecting with you and talking to you, because that sharing of any sort of emotion makes it into an anecdote instead of some sort of just a fact-sharing mission, right? So there's also, and therapy can help with this too, and coaching. Like, if you really do, you understand that you get into these situations where you feel like you're not able to connect with people because your communication skills aren't very good, then that is something that you can benefit from coaching or what have you. But overall, there's people who just do not put themselves out there, and there is a whole social kind of anti-hanging out kind of culture. But people are still hanging out. They're not going out as much as they did. They're not going to parties like in, you know, when you look at TV from when we all grew up, adults were going to parties. Very few adults are going to parties on the regular. You know, like, that just is not a thing that I hear about. from my clients or that I witnessed, that's more rare. So it used to be like if it was June, people would be going to weddings and weddings. I don't hear people going to multiple weddings every June. It's like much, people's social circles are smaller. The amount of children people are having is smaller. The amount of extended family, kind of the extended family has shrunk and they're far flung. So people do not have like weekly poker nights the way that they did. But that does not mean that people do not have friends and the capacity to make friends. So again, if this resonated with you, you should really join the men's coaching group or try some of my ideas. Talk to somebody that exists in your life currently and try to deepen that connection. Somebody that you see when you take your kid to swim class. If you're a guy, talk to the dad, the other dad that's there. Start talking about anything. Smile, bring some feeling into it. Any kind of story, the stories are more funny when they're self-deprecating, honestly. But, I was never very good at swimming, so I'm glad that he's learning. Like, already you like that person better than somebody who's like, I was awesome at swimming, and look at him, chip off the old block. Like, that's like a little bit, you don't want to come off like an asshole. But if this stuff sounds like super confusing, again, coaching therapy can help. Honestly, some guys just need to ask their wife. I mean, man, is she waiting for an opportunity? If you say, do you think that I don't connect with people very well? Why? She's free and she probably knows better than a therapist would because she's been watching you for years. But anyway, thanks for listening, guys. I do think that people are better when they have people to connect to. It gives you other opportunities to think about things from other perspectives, gives you other people in your life besides just your partner, which can be too much of a burden for your partner. And it enriches your general worldview with other human beings, what they go through. Frequently, it's what you go through. It's very healing to connect to somebody who's in the same stage with the same issues. And that is what I think. And this all goes for women too, because it's not like women don't struggle with needing connection as well. And exactly the same things that I talked about. Go up to the person that you see all the time. Reach out to somebody you haven't talked to in a while. You have to put yourself out there if you want to be able to make connections. All right, thanks for listening, y'all, and I will talk to you soon. Bye-bye.